With Pretty Litter, the world's smartest kitty litter, you don't need a detective to know if your cat is healthy or not. Pretty Litter's crystals change color to help detect early signs of potential illness, so you can monitor your cat's health. Save 20% on your first order at prettylitter.com, code MORBID.
Hey weirdos, I'm Elena.
I'm Ash.
And this is Morbid.
New Year Morbid.
It's New Year.
That's it. Same
That's
us.
it. Nothing else. We're not claiming anything. We're not doing anything. Ash is going to moisturize. We're going to organize, and that's about it.
Moisturize and organize, baby.
Not promising anything else.
No, just promising.
No one's claiming this year. No one's doing anything like that. We're just going to live it.
We're just vibing, okay?
We're just taking it day by day, everybody, okay?
That's all we can do.
That's all we're going to do.
Hopefully you're living a better New Year's than the woman who we encountered the other day.
Oh my God, for real.
If you follow, this is the best. If you follow me on Twitter, you know that we were out the other day grabbing coffee and we were in this like parking lot drive-through area. And this woman basically just started backing her fucking car into mine.
When I say to you that like, I was looking out the window as Ash was driving.
I was like, I'm going to get crushed.
If she had opened her window, she could have tapped on the back of her car easily.
I should have, actually.
And she just kept backing up and wasn't stopping.
Yeah.
And let me preface this by saying, and I'm still not, I have never been in the business of trusting a complete stranger to not hit my car. I have never been in that business. I don't plan to open that business now, especially after what happened now.
No, I've never subscribed to that business. So I did a nice little honk of, hey, please don't hit my car. Thank you.
We all know that warning honk. We know the asshole honk and we know the warning honk. The warning honk is a boop, boop, quick little eat.
And that's all I did.
The asshole honk is like that. We know that.
Yeah. So I did a friendly little honk like, hey, please don't hit me, ma'am. And then I rolled down my window. And after this woman literally tried to hit my car, I gave her the benefit of the doubt. And I yelled out my window, hey, are you trying to get out? Like I can back up. She did not want to hear that. She started screaming at me, you're in a fucking parking lot. Pay attention. And I was like, I am the one paying attention to you almost backing into my car. It's evidently you that's not paying attention to where I am.
My favorite part of this was she said,
I have a backup camera. I wasn't going to hit you.
Okay.
How do I know that?
I don't trust people I don't know to not hit my car. One.
Yep.
Two, we have heated seats in our car. What else do you have?
Galena was like, we should have just been like, yeah, well, I have heated seats. And then she could have been like, well, I have 4-wheel drive. I got new windshield wipers.
Like, are we just doing a tit for tat what amenities we have in our cars? I don't give a shit that you have a backup camera. No. What?
So she is literally screaming at me. And I am just looking at this woman befuddled. Like, I'm not the kind of person who in situations like this just like screams back because my body shuts down. I don't know what to do. I'm like, why are you like this? I don't understand.
And also, Ash was very non-confrontational. She literally leaned out her window and said, hey, are you trying to leave? Like, or are you just trying to move your car? Like, I can back up.
Yeah, like I was trying to rectify the situation.
Very nice.
Happy New Year, lady.
This woman came out guns blazing.
Screaming.
In her athleisure outfit. And
yeah,
she was not nice.
The vibes were not immaculate.
I was sitting next to Ash and I was just watching this whole thing and I was like,
feel the heat radiating
and I could just feel my blood pressure and also like with the end of the year that we had, I was like,
don't fuck with me,
honey. You think you can scare me?
Yeah.
You think we had COVID?
My whole house had Rona.
We had COVID. We had a dog who we had for 12 years and was our first baby die. My mom, almost like broke her whole face open falling. And It's like, you think you can scare me?
Like we've been through this.
And you're just not going to yell at Ash. You're just not going to.
You are not.
If I'm around, you're not going to.
Elena yells at this woman, calm the fuck down. Don't you fucking yell at her. Like screaming. And the lady's yelling back and the lady's going, no. So I just rolled up my window, waved at the woman nicely, and just continued upon my day.
In my heart, was pounding so hard because I was like,
so red.
I was like, I can't. And then I was like, no, you're not going to yell at you. Like, it's just not going to happen. You didn't deserve that.
No,
You were being very nice.
I was.
She almost hit your car.
Yeah.
I am not going to trust strangers to not hit my car. And I don't know why you think I care that you have a fucking backup camera. And who are you yelling at me from your minivan in the middle of a parking lot? Like, what is wrong with you?
And I was so confused because she had just pulled into the spot. So I was like, oh, maybe she's trying to straighten out at first. And because she had backed up twice, actually, and almost hit us. So I was like, do you need me to move so you can straighten out? Like, I thought that's what it was. But then as she's yelling at me, she points to the car next to her and she's like, he's trying to move. And I was like, he should do that then because he has room. Like,
and he never moved. And I don't even think they knew each other.
No, they definitely didn't. And
strange.
So he's trying to move. How does that you backing into my? I don't see the correlation, ma'am. So I was like, you know what? I don't think anybody's gonna win here. I think you should have gotten an extra coffee today, ma'am, because I don't know who pissed in your fucking Wheaties, but
Happy
it wasn't
New Year to that,
coont,
that Becky out there.
Yeah.
But and what's even crazy, because this is like a weird parking lot, so there's like, and it was busy.
Yeah.
So this other guy tried to get out of line, and he came next to us, rolled down his window, and we rolled down ours, and he was like, hey, do you mind if when that car in front of you moves, if I just scoot around and out of here?
And
we said,
of course not.
Have a great day.
Go ahead. Happy New Year.
That's how you talk to people.
Yeah, like if you're trying to move, just be like, hey, I'm trying to move.
All she had to do was lean out her window and like make the motion, like, can you roll down your way? And we would have. And if she was like, do you mind if I just try to scoot out of here? I'd be like,
absolutely.
But no. So there's that.
I have a backup camera.
I have a backup camera.
Well.
That's my I want like a shirt that says I have a backup camera.
I think every car since like 2010 has had one. So congrats, lady.
And I literally don't care. I don't. And the way you're acting now, I was supposed to trust that you're a rational person who isn't going to hit my car.
No. And also, we were getting coffee. She never went in to get coffee.
No.
She never got out of her car, and then she just left. I was like, why were you even here?
No, she woke up and she chose an electric blue athleisure shirt and violence.
Yeah, she did.
That's what she chose.
Yeah.
So I hope you know what? I hope you're having a great fucking New Year. I hope you're listening to this.
But long story short, we all need an Elena.
And you know what?
She loves me.
And you know what? I do. I love you.
Thank
okay?
you.
Like no one's gonna yell at you.
No, I don't like people. But
and you know what we also need? We need a 1930s Arkansas murder.
Yeah.
Case.
And I'm always saying that.
We need to talk about the river people of the White River in Arkansas in 1930s is what we need to do.
I woke up this morning and I actually said to myself, today on Morbid, I really need an Arkansas River case.
Yeah, I think everybody did. So here I am. I'm here to deliver it for you.
I give the people what they ask
and
for.
This is the case of the Swamp Angel.
The Swamp Angel?
The Swamp Angel.
Can I identify as a swamp angel from this day forward?
I mean, you got to do a lot. And I don't know if after all this, you're still going to want to identify as a swamp angel, but
let's find out.
They called, this is about Helen Spence, who they called the swamp angel.
This gives me already, was it Aunt Julia vibes?
Aunt Julia. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It does.
From
You're right.
The Cabin on the Water.
You're right. Now, this takes place in the area of the Lower White River in Arkansas. Now, let me give you a brief history on this area because this story not only concerns the area, but it concerns a community of people in that area.
All right.
And these people are referred to as the river people. And we're going to get into that in a moment.
All right.
So the White River is over 700 miles long, which
Holy
is
shit.
crazy.
That is.
It begins in Arkansas in the Boston Mountains, which I was like, Boston Mountains, kid. But no, it's the Boston Mountains, kid. And then snakes into Missouri a little bit and then bends back into Arkansas.
So it's like
there's a little like spit of it in Missouri, but then it's basically in Arkansas.
Okay.
Now the Osage people, which remember when I did, I believe it was the Bloody Benders, where I called it Osage, and everybody was like, "You made it sound so fancy," and I loved it. But it's Osage. I learned.
All right.
The Osage people and Cherokee and Quapaw tribes made the banks of this river their homes for a long time, and up to like the 1700s. Then settlers came through and were like, "Mine." You know how that goes. You know how that goes. So the Lower White River is where the White River proper kind of begins to empty into the Mississippi River. And this is where our story takes place, the Lower White River.
Okay.
So in the 1920s and the 1930s, which is where this whole story is going to happen, before that, after that, even now a little bit, there is a community of people called the river people. Of course, people behind their backs would call them river rats, which is not something you should ever call them. That's like a nasty term for them, but people would call them that. And that's basically like, you want to start a fight, you call a river person a river rat.
Yeah, don't be doing that.
Yeah, so don't do that. But they were proud, they were hardworking, and they were a vital part of the culture and the lives of the so-called drylanders, which were obviously people who lived in the cities and on dry land.
All right.
They lived on houseboats, and they fur trapped, they caught their own food, they dove for fish and mussels in particular in that river. They actually were big button makers, and they would make them out of the mussel shells.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And according to the Arkansas Times, over 90% of buttons in U.S. Army uniforms were made from these mussels.
That is really
Isn't
cool.
that crazy?
I love mussels.
Right? I do not. I think they're pretty.
You said right? And I was like, you
do, but I love the look of them. They're like that pretty.
They're pretty.
Like iridescent shell.
Yeah, yeah.
They made their own diving equipment, too.
Whoa.
Yeah. Like they made diving helmets and shit from car parts and other like refurbished recycled junk, basically.
Fucking crafty guy.
Yeah. They would collect mussels on the bottom of the rivers. And this is directly from a book I read about this case, which I highly recommend.
Ooh.
Highly. I will obviously post it in the show notes. It's called Daughter of the White River by Denise White Parkinson. Amazing book.
I like that title, Daughter of the White River.
It's amazing. I really want everybody to read it because Denise really goes into like so much detail about the time frame, the area, the river people themselves, the characters in this story. She actually spent a ton of time interviewing like a character in this story. I say a character because this really does feel like a movie, but it's real. And I'll tell you who when it comes up to it. But she took a lot of time really talking to people that were fully involved in this.
I love that.
She's like accounts. A descendant from like her ancestors were like river people.
Oh, so
she
cool.
was born and raised in Arkansas. Like she's very much a part of this whole thing.
Wow.
So from that book, about the diving helmets that they did. This is a direct quote. It says, using a diving helmet crafted from the barrel-shaped gas tank of a Model T, the diver set the metal cylinder on his shoulders and commenced to wade in. Weighed down by the helmet and some rocks, the diver made his descent, dumping rocks as needed to surface again. Oh. Some helmets had a window of glass. Sometimes the men just moved along blind in the river muck. Isn't that wild?
I can't imagine just like diving and just into just blackness.
It is fascinating. Like
just like discarding rocks to float back up.
They were insanely skilled, like, I mean, the ingenuity and the innovation they had was like out of this world
and like beyond their time.
Yeah, and so
like, excuse me, ahead of their time.
It'd be way beyond their time. It's true though.
Let's be real. I think we can all probably up our fruit and veggie game. When you think about how much fruit and vegetables you actually need to eat throughout the day, you're like, oh wow, that's a lot to fit into the day. But this year, I want to change the fact that I'm not usually getting those into my day. That's why I'm keeping my freezer stocked with Daily Harvest. Daily Harvest is the easiest way to get more fruits and veggies into my day every day. They have my back with delicious food that's good for me and good for the planet. Daily Harvest delivers delicious harvest bowls, flatbreads, smoothies, and more, all built on organic fruits and vegetables right to your door, and it conveniently stays fresh in your freezer. Some of my personal favorites, I love that sweet potato wild rice hash bowl. I also love the strawberry and peach smoothie, and they also have this tomato and zucchini minestrone soup, which is so delectable. Daily Harvest takes literally minutes to prepare and never uses preservatives, added sugar, or anything artificial. And that goes for everything. They have so many delicious options for every time of day. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, dessert, even a snack. Daily Harvest has you covered. The other night, I was really craving pizza, but I didn't want to eat like some ooey gooey greasy pizza that was going to make me feel so crappy after. So I had the kale and sweet potato pizza. The flatbread. So good. You pop it in the oven, and then I wanted to kind of add a little spice to mine. So I drizzled some balsamic reduction on top and a sprinkle of Parmigiano Reggiano cheese, and I made it my own. It was absolutely delicious, and honestly, it's delicious without that too. Daily Harvest is all about preserving and protecting the earth for current and future generations to come. From their recyclable and compostable packaging to investing in organic farming practices and reducing food waste, you can feel good about the choices that you're making physically economically and for the environment. Daily Harvest makes it easy to feel good about what I'm doing for myself and the planet. Go to dailyharvest.com/morbid to get up to $40 off your first box. That's dailyharvest.com/morbid for up to $40 off your first box. dailyharvest.com/morbid.
But the person that the author of that book talked to really get a feel for all of this was a guy named L.C. Brown. He was the son of the town sheriff, who was Lemuel Cressy Brown Sr.
All right.
And L.C. was actually Lem Jr. And Helen Spence is the swamp angel who we're going to talk about, was very good friends with L.C. Brown, like best friends growing up. She actually gave him the nickname L.C. She was like,
cute.
Can I call it? She was like, you're not like a Lem Jr. You don't look like a junior to me. Like, can I call you L.C.?
I like it.
And he was like, I love it. So he went by that. He plays a huge role in this because they grew up together. They were like best friends. He knew this swamp angel from
from
the
childhood,
jump, basically. And he told her story and made sure her story got told the right way. So he's very important. Now, these river people used every bit of everything they caught or hunted. They never hunted or killed animals for sport, and they shared what they had and what they caught with each other. Mm-hmm. If someone got a big fish bounty, they all enjoyed that big fish bounty.
It's
they
a
never
community.
kept it. Yeah, like they would enjoy the fruits of each other's labors, basically.
I love that.
It was a very tight-knit community. They also had their own set of rules and laws. They referred to this as river justice, and it was often carried out by their own discretion.
Now that's starting to sound
Yeah,
scary.
it's a little scary.
I don't want to be served river justice.
You do not.
It doesn't sound like it already.
No. Settlements of river people would also look out for each other.
Yeah.
They created alarm systems that they all knew how to sound and would take turns looking out at night at vulnerable times. They were always willing and ready to jump in and help each other if needed. In Arkansas and possibly elsewhere, but I only researched the river people in this particular river in Arkansas. I'm sure there's different rules for all of them. They would whittle their own alarm whistles and would use them to call out in the middle of the night if someone invaded or there was any cause for concern or harm.
That's cool.
And there was like a certain whistle sound that they would make that you knew was the alarm sound, basically.
Cool.
Almost like a tornado siren.
Yeah.
You know? So now we know what the river people are, how they work. Let's talk about Helen Spence, our swamp angel.
Swamp angel.
Now, her birth date is not completely known.
Okay.
We do know around this time that this began, she was, that the story really gets going is when she was around 17 years old. Mm-hmm. But even to this day, we have no idea what her birthday was.
Okay.
Her parents were Cicero Spence and Ellen Woods. She had one older sister named Edna, who she referred to as Edie.
Oh.
They were very close. At some point unknown, Ellen, the mother, passed away. It was when she was very young, like months old, I think, when
sad.
Helen was. And Cicero eventually remarried a woman named Ada. And everyone got along. It seemed like it was a very good, solid family who was respected by everybody else, very well liked. Everything was great.
Cool. And they're river people, obviously.
They're river people.
Yeah.
Now, Cicero had made their houseboat himself,
cool.
from scratch. Completely from scratch.
On a houseboat for like a period of time.
I do not, but I think I think this seems lovely for anybody who likes the water.
I think it'd be so cool.
It seems like a pretty rad place.
Just for a little bit.
Yeah, just for a little bit.
A little bit.
So he made their houseboat. It was pretty rad, all considering. This houseboat, it had a tin roof, was over 30 feet long, had a nice patio, a kind of walkway he built around the boat where they could like hang out on chairs.
Cool.
Just hang out there. They had several rooms. There was 3 bedrooms, one for everybody aboard. There was electricity, running water,
wow.
Everything you needed on this houseboat.
Cool.
Now, Cicero was super smart, really skilled. He was a master trapper and fisherman. He was a great hunter. He was able to provide, and he taught his neighbors and friends and his daughters these skills. And according to Daughter of the White River, people in the river community would also come to him for help with like mediation of fights.
Okay.
So whenever there was an issue among families or friends on the river, Cicero would always be the one to help talk it out with them and come to an understanding.
He was like the river people's therapist.
He really was. He would like help them chill out.
Cool.
And help them like walk away from it without anything happening.
Nice.
Now,
I feel like every community needs that.
Right. I feel like everybody needs a Cicero.
Yeah.
I don't know. But Helen adored her father.
Oh.
And they spent a ton of time together. After her chores or whatever she needed to get done, she would just hang out with him, learning everything she could learn from him. She just admired him. She would follow him to all his little things that he would do, and he would happily take her.
I love that.
Like, seemed like they had this, like, crazy bond.
Yeah.
And he really, like, and everything I read about it was, like, he... You know, and it was definitely a product of the time. He treated her like they would normally treat a son.
Sure.
Because, like, father-son. Sure.
Yeah.
But he taught her everything he would have taught a son.
So he respected her.
So he really respected her. And she had a ton of friends. They were, like, very close friends on the river, too, like, because they were together all the time.
Oh, yeah.
The most mentioned ones I heard about in every article or every book I read was a guy named John Black, who she grew up with, and he becomes very important, and the sheriff's son, Elsie Brown, who continually tells her story now. They were huge fixtures in her life. They spent countless days with her and the other kids from the riverboats. They were fished together, hunted together. They played together. They took trips by boat at night to go watch the stars on a boat. Like,
beautiful.
Very wholesome, very sweet friendships.
Hell yeah.
And they would literally, like... And it was funny because I read a bunch of things that, like, Cicero was very protective of his daughters, too. Mm-hmm. And this was around the time of the Great Depression. Things were really shitty. The river people really kind of, like, thrived because they fished and hunted and stuff. So, like, they were kind of taken care of. But farmers were having terrible times. Everybody else on dry land was, like, it was a depression.
Yeah.
And there was also a very hot summer during all of this in Arkansas. So I guess the heat was making people kind of crazy along with everything that was going on. And there was a lot of times where Cicero would kind of, like, pull his daughters close and be like, you need to watch out for strangers around here because people are, like, starting to go crazy with the heat and, like, with what's going on.
I feel like people, that's like now. Like, people are going crazy with the pandemic.
It's true. So it's like you need to be careful because people are out of their minds.
Yeah.
And so, like, even when John Black would come to be like, let's go take a riverboat ride and, like, go watch the stars, he was like, like, you could.
I hope that's all you're doing. You better keep an eye on those stars.
Literally, he was like, yeah, you look at the stars.
He's like, what constellations?
It seems like a very, like, it's just like a wholesome friendship thing.
Yeah.
Now, she was briefly married to a boy named Buster Eaton, who was, and I feel like with a name Buster Eaton, you can kind of guess that he was a moonshiner. I don't know. It just makes sense. Yeah. Like, I feel like he would have either been, like, you know, like a speakeasy owner, or, like, he just makes sense that he was like a moonshiner, you know, what's it called when they were, like, against prohibition?
Bootlegger?
Bootlegger. Yeah. That's what it is. I was like, I'm going to look it up because this is going to bother me. A bootlegger.
I just, like, closed my eyes really hard.
Like, you did. That was
I was
good.
like, come to me.
It came. A bootlegger, a moonshiner, a speakeasy owner. Like, he just, Buster Eaton seems like he's, like, just up to no good.
Yeah, no, his name's Buster. You can't be like, come on, Buster.
But they were married briefly. Not a ton is known about it. I couldn't find a lot about it at all.
Yeah.
Very brief. She returned to live with her family on the river pretty quickly.
Buster wasn't for me.
No, not for her. But they kept using her former married name of Eaton in newspaper articles about her, and that annoyed me a lot.
Yeah, that is annoying.
Because, like, she didn't have that name anymore.
I hate when they'll do that in cases, too, where, like, the woman was murdered by her husband and they continue to, like...
use the married name.
Yeah, I'm like,
can you not?
No, probably not now.
If any time is the time to use her maiden name, like, use
right
that.
now, yeah.
So, that's basically, like, what life on the river was. A very, very brief overview. I urge you to read that book to get a very rich and very, like, full view of this. And,
it sounds like a good read.
Some good stories from Elsie are in there, like, first-hand accounts and, like, conversations. Really good.
I can, like, picture it.
But I wanted to give you a quick brief overview of that. Because then one morning in December, in 1932, I believe it was, when Helen was about 17 years old, she recalled she heard her father speaking to a man he referred to as Jack when she woke up early that morning. She could hear him outside. Mm-hmm. He and Jack discussed a fishing trip, and then they left together on a little motorboat. So Helen's stepmother, Ada, woke her up and was like, Cicero, I made him some lunch, but he forgot it. Mm-hmm. So she said, why don't you and I go take a small, like, little paddle boat and row it out to him. Okay. Because he's probably not that far.
Yeah.
So she was like, sure thing, girl.
I love how cute that is. Like, he forgot his lunch. Let's go paddleboard
Let's just go paddleboat that out there to him. So as they come up, they start seeing the boat, and they see that they're standing up in the boat, and they're arguing.
Oh, no.
And they're, like, in each other's faces a little bit.
Uh-oh.
And then out of nowhere, Helen said she just heard a shot sound and Cicero fell.
No.
Jack saw Ada and Helen coming, like looked over and saw them, immediately pushed Cicero right into the water.
What?
And then pointed the gun at them and said, he was looking for Cicero's money that he knew he had buried, and he said he refused to show me where it was. So then he's holding a gun at them the whole time, and Ada, the stepmother, saved Helen by telling Jack, I know where it is. I'll show you. And she said she doesn't know anything. She was like, I think she referred to her as like simple-minded. And she said she won't be able to tell you anything. Just leave her alone.
Okay.
But I'll tell you.
Okay. Wow. What a great stepmother.
Apparently they were like very, very close to like.
Well, yeah, I'm sure she was like part of her life for a long time.
I think she became her stepmother when she was like 1 year old or something like.
Cicero.
Yeah. So Cicero. It was
and to
really
watch your
sad.
father get shot.
Yeah. And Jack grabbed Ada, forced her onto his motorboat, and then stole the oars from Helen and just pushed her downstream without oars.
What the fuck? Like, what is even the purpose of that?
Just to be an asshole.
What a dick. And he's not a river person, right?
No.
Okay.
He's an outsider.
Okay.
And she just sat in the boat, aimlessly floating in absolute shock and terror.
Oh my God.
And eventually some nice people found her and
How
saved her.
traumatic.
Now, there was no hidden money. There was no buried money. Ada knew there was no buried money. Ada did it purely to save Helen. She knew there was nothing to show Jack, but she was like, I just need to get him away from her.
Oh my God, what an amazing human.
Yeah. When Jack discovered this, he beat Ada to within an inch of her life and raped her.
Oh God.
She
Who the fuck is
survived
this
initially. And the guy, his name was Jack Worrells, was caught when word spread of what had happened. Now, normally the river people would have dealt out some river justice.
Hell yeah.
But he was caught by the law and would stand trial for the murder of Cicero Spence.
Okay. Most of you have probably heard me sing the praises of Prose, the world's most personalized hair care. And for those of you that haven't, I want to tell you all about the incredible results that I'm seeing since using my customized Prose products. For those of you that follow me on Instagram, you know that my hair color changes about every single day, maybe every single month if it's like if I'm like really feeling it. But obviously that causes a lot of damage to my hair. And using Prose products, I feel like I really don't have as much damage as I would if I wasn't using them. I use the reparative formula, which makes my hair feel so much softer than it would if I was like bleaching it every day. And it kind of looks shinier than it used to, which I'm like, wow, Prose is just magic. I use the pre-shampoo mask, which is so important, especially if you have bleached hair, because it kind of like softens your hair first before you get it all rough with shampoo. Prose knows where it's at, and they know that there's more to you than just your hair type. They have given over 1 million consultations with their in-depth hair quiz, which is exactly how I got started. You answer a ton of questions just based on like what area you live in, what kind of water you have, what kind of hair type you have, what is your eating habits, like, because that affects your hair too. What's the damage level? Mine's a 10. And by analyzing over 85 personal factors, Prose determines a unique blend of ingredients to treat your exact concerns. They also have a review and refine feature, which lets you tweak your formulas for any reason, like change of address, change of hair color, or your diet. I have used this refine feature so many times because of the change of my hair color. When it's blonde, I need a little extra TLC, and when it's a little darker, I'm not necessarily needing that because I'm not coloring it so often. And I think it's really cool that they have that because we change our hair all the time. And as a carbon neutral certified B Corp, Prose is an industry leader in clean and responsible beauty. All of their ingredients are sustainably sourced, ethically gathered, and cruelty-free. They're also the first custom beauty brand to go carbon neutral. Amazing. If you're not 100% positive that Prose is the best hair care that you've had, they will take the products back, no questions asked. Prose is the healthy hair regimen with your name all over it. Take your free in-depth hair consultation and get 15% off your first order today. Go to prose.com/morbid. That's prose.com/morbid for your free in-depth hair consultation and 15% off.
Now, family from a neighboring city took Helen's sister Edie because Edie actually was born with paralysis. So she was like, she couldn't walk. She needed
help.
She needed a lot of help.
And care.
Without parents on the river, she was not going to do well. No. So neighboring family took her in the city. Now, Helen stayed and spent all her time in the hospital in Memphis taking care of Ada.
Oh.
And just being there in case she woke up and being there to like try to nurse her back to health.
Because was she in a coma?
She was in and out of a coma. She was in horrible shape.
Wow.
Now, January 7th, 1931. So, sorry, I said this happened in 1932. It was 1931.
That's great.
January 7th, 1931, she died as a result of her brutal assault.
No, I knew you were going to say that too.
Yeah. So on the day of Jack's trial at the DeWitt courthouse, Helen was seated in the front row.
And Helen is all alone now.
She's an orphan now.
My
completely.
God. And how old was she?
She was 17.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And they described what she was wearing, and there's a ton of like old newspaper accounts of this. They described what she was wearing as a red velvet suit and a white fur-trimmed, like rabbit fur-trimmed muff on her hands. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
bitch. You better work.
And she sat quietly for hours in that front row just watching this. And it seemed as though this case could honestly go either way, weirdly, because he was claiming it was self-defense. Mm-hmm. She was 17, so she wasn't able to testify because they wouldn't take her as credible evidence.
Cool.
And now Ada, the only witness, was dead.
It's like, hi, I witnessed the whole entire thing.
But
like,
she's not
please
allowed
let
to
me
even
testify.
say it.
That's
Yeah.
so fucked.
And they basically, you know, it was wondered whether this was really being properly tried as well, because the victim was a river person.
I was going to say, it
was definitely a
taking
class
serious
thing, I think, was playing into this, and it plays into a lot of this.
I was going to ask you that.
So there was a real possibility that Jack was going to be acquitted at the end of this. And as Jack stood, while the jury, so Jack stood up, the jury stood up, the jury was about to file out of the room to go deliberate, Helen also stood. And from inside her hand muff, she drew a pearl-handled pistol.
Bitch, yes, she did.
And without hesitation, she shot Jack in the chest 4 times in the middle of the courthouse.
A motherfucking icon.
After pulling it out of a rabbit fur-trimmed muff.
While wearing a fucking red velvet suit, we said?
Hell yeah.
Biatch.
Yeah.
I am living.
Then she just stood there in the courtroom as it descended into chaos.
I was like, what the fuck is that?
And the local sheriff, County Sheriff Lemuel Cressy Brown Sr.,
Her
her friend
best
Elsie's
friend's
father,
dad.
who was close to the Spence family and, like we said, whose son was like best friends with Helen, was the first to come up to her.
I'd be like, it was a moment of insanity. Sorry.
And I believe he's described as still smoking a pipe, and he was just walking up to her like,
holding the pipe.
"Excuse me, girlfriend."
Oh,
and
no.
she just turned around and was like, "Oh,
Hey,
like,
what's up?"
Hey, sheriff. And like had her hands down. Like after she shot him, she just put her hands down like, yeah, that's what I wanted to do.
Vengeance is hers.
She went with the sheriff without incident into a holding room, and he took the gun from her and she gave it to him.
A pearl handled.
And he tried to empty the bullets out that remained in the gun, and it was like stuck, and he was like very stressed out and was like shaking, I guess, according to the book. He was like shaking and freaking out. And she basically was like, "Let me do it. It sticks sometimes," and just pulled it back.
Wow.
And she did it for him and then gave the gun back to him.
Amazing.
And according to the book, Daughter of the White River, every man in the room literally dove for cover thinking she was going to just go ham and shoot everybody.
She's like, no, guys, I don't care about you.
But she just calmly emptied the bullets.
She's like, this motherfucker murdered my dad in front of me.
Her only response to what the hell she was thinking was, "He killed my daddy."
Hell yeah. He did.
She said, "He killed my daddy."
I killed
That was
him.
it. Now, newspaper and media.
She said, that's river justice.
Yep, she said, "Fuck around and find out." He found out.
She said, fuck around and find out.
And what's crazy is newspaper and media obviously went nuts about this.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, there was like sensationalism. Like they said that she had to be tackled and she threw the gun, but the sheriff confirmed she had just chilled there.
Yeah.
And that she had gone with him easily and calmly, handed the gun, no incident. The Arkansas Gazette reported, quote, "She laughed, telling of the flight of judge, jurors, lawyers, and spectators from the courtroom where she opened fire. She hopes to obtain her freedom, as she does not believe she committed a crime. When the electric chair was mentioned, she laughed again."
Amazing.
Now, she was dubbed the Swamp Angel.
Yeah, she was.
Great band name, I call it. So,
honestly.
and she was also quoted as saying, "Down where I was raised in the White River bottoms, where we rarely saw the quote-unquote law, we took care of such matters ourselves. No one ever killed anyone unless there was great reason for it. I was born to that kind of law, and it seemed all right to me. Anyhow, none of my people or the folks I grew up with trusted officers or the courts."
Yeah, and clearly that's why.
And it looked like he was about to get acquitted.
Right.
And he had brutally assaulted and murdered her stepmother as well.
Yeah, and raped her.
Now, she was definitely a hero to a lot of people, and a lot of people sympathized with her.
I do.
And they sympathized with this act of vengeance. A lot of people came out and supported her.
That motherfucker murdered her daddy.
Obviously, there were people who came out and, you know, were like, vigilante justice can't be a thing because laws and shit, which, like, I know that it's a very slippery slope when you allow people to shoot people in the middle of courtrooms.
Be very chaotic if we continue 100%. To do so.
We can look back on this and be like, whoa, that was crazy. But, like, it can't happen.
No.
Now, but the support was pretty overwhelming. But, you know, how that goes. So now now she's tried on the crime of first-degree murder because she did bring that gun into the courthouse with a clear plan in mind. She was facing 5 years in prison if convicted, and technically they had passed that judgment down pretty quickly. Like, she was going to go to prison. But there was some technicality which allowed her to appeal this immediately. Now, she was not held in jail or anything for this time. She was released into the custody of another sheriff who offered to have her live in his house.
Wow.
Sheriff McAllister and his wife. And during that time that she awaited her trial, they were trying to, they were going to try to appeal. And there was the possibility that she might even get a pardon from the governor at this time. But while she was doing this, she was kind of out on like a promise to appear kind of thing. She had a curfew. She couldn't be out after sundown. And she got a job. She had to get a job. And she got one at the Rothenhofer Cafe in DeWitt. Now, its owner was a man who everyone in town knew to be pretty horrific with women, especially those he had working for him.
No.
He assaulted and groped them with reckless abandon.
Gross.
His name was Jim Bohatz.
Fuck him.
We'll get back to him, but Helen was doing well there and actually had, her reputation was actually bringing people in from everywhere because they wanted to be served by the Swamp Angel.
Sure.
Which, same.
Like, you're welcome, Jim.
Yeah. So a judge granted her permission to move from the sheriff's home eventually into an apartment above the cafe where she worked.
Okay. And
she was moving in with another waitress at the cafe whose name was Ina Mayberry.
Oh, I love the name Ina.
It's just, pretty.
Yeah, it is.
Ina.
I like I names.
Right? It's just Ina. I don't know.
It's flowy.
Anybody named Ina, you just feel like it's just like, woo.
Yeah, like Ina Garden.
So I feel like Ina was probably great. For months, it was kind of the same, with nothing moving forward with her case, but she just kind of worked and worked and worked. Jim Bohatz got more and more belligerent and would go into drunken rages and try to assault the girls that worked for him.
Great.
He was also getting very angry whenever reporters would show up at the cafe.
Why?
It's like you're getting a lot of press here.
Yeah.
And when men would try to talk to Helen. So he was getting her. Yeah. Now, he kept asking her out and trying to get her to go places with him, and and would not accept no for an answer.
Gross.
So in February, finally he came up to Helen and he was like, "Listen, will you take a drive with me?
No.
I feel bad about how I've been acting. I just want to show you that I'm not a predator." So she was like, fine.
This is giving me Chris in The Craft vibes.
Yes. And so she's like, fine. I'm
and he's her boss. Like, she's probably just afraid, I have to.
And part of her whole thing is she has to have employment. And she's like, I don't want to get fired.
She's like, I'm doing well here.
Yeah. I'm trying to get this pardon. Let's just do this. Mm-hmm. Now, they went. Don't know what happened. But the following day, news broke that Jim Bohatz was found murdered. At a popular place for couples to hang out and bang out. I don't know. I made that up.
Did you just say hang out and bang out?
I did it rhyme.
And you just did it so casually. You just said they hanged out and banged out. Wow.
No, just couples did.
Just couples hang out and bang out.
That's just a place where they go. It rhymed. I felt like I had to say
That's hilarious.
That
was like Bumpin' Uglies, but better.
Thank you.
Do you want to go hang out, bang out?
Hang out and bang out at this cool, Arkansas overlook place.
Cute.
So Jim had been shot by the gun he actually owned, and he was found in his car with it parked in a space there.
Well,
They immediately went and brought in Helen for questioning that morning because she is a known murderer who worked for him, and he was a predatory mess around her, and everyone knew it. So she denied everything. There was no evidence to say that she was lying, so the case just kind of went cold.
All right.
And everyone basically said there were so many people who hated this guy.
It could have been
that
anybody.
It would kind of be hard to nail it down to one person who did it, which, way harsh, Ty, but, I think it's...
I watched Clueless last night.
Get it.
I did.
Look at that. We're on the same wavelength. But I think it's they knew Helen went out with him, or someone said they did, but they were like, there's no evidence that she did it. And he's gross to a lot of people, and a lot of people could have done this. So we can't just say it's her. Now, not long after that, the 5-year sentence that they originally gave her was overturned.
Yes.
And her conviction was downgraded to manslaughter. She didn't get the pardon, but it was downgraded.
Shorter sentence.
So she was now sentenced to 2 years in prison to be served starting October 11th, 1932. She was going to serve it out at a women's facility in Jacksonville. And this place was called the P Farm.
The P Farm.
I'm not real sure why.
Yikes.
By all accounts, her stay in that prison was completely fine. She had really no complaints, was not really forced, or she wasn't at all forced into hard labor because her name recognition at the time.
Hey.
They didn't want like fights breaking out or anything. So she was kept inside, which she was fine with. Everyone, according to Helen, was nice. The inmates took care of each other. Cool. Weird, but okay. She was actually paroled early because of an appeal for parole by the Arkansas prosecution attorney, George Hart. I think it's like Harthay, I believe it's how you say it. George. Okay. We'll just say George. So she was released early, like pretty early in June 1933.
Wow.
But the only thing was she got that appeal for parole. She got out early, but she couldn't return to DeWitt or the White River and had to stay away from any of the counties that she kind of knew her whole life.
She can't go home?
Yeah, she can't go home. It was just part of the parole, like, you got to be out of here.
That's stupid. Where the fuck am I supposed to go?
She went to Little Rock.
Okay.
And basically stayed there for a couple of weeks and then kind of had enough. Wasn't into it.
She was like, I'm going to the river.
So she was out June 1933. Only a couple of weeks later, on June 15th, 1933, she got dressed in a polka dotted dress, did her hair, gave herself that finger gun wink fake in the mirror. I don't know if she did that. I just feel like she did. Then she walked to the Little Rock Police Department, asked for Chief James Pitcock. And when she got him, she said, hey, I actually did kill Jimbo Hotson DeWitt. And here's the full confession.
So do you think that she wanted to go back to prison because she didn't have anywhere else to go?
That's the big question on everyone's mind because she had literally been out for like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
There was really nothing that set this off. She just walked in there.
Right.
People think either she had
guilty
clear conscience, and she said it had been weighing on her mind.
Okay.
So maybe it was just a guilty conscience, but
maybe a combination of a guilty conscience.
I think it might have
been
a combo. Like, this isn't really the life I want to live anyways, and this is weighing on me, so I'm just going to tell them.
So she's going to go to prison.
So she makes the full confession.
Okay.
Now, the newspaper commercial appeal said this about it. Which I was like, of course, this is how they described it.
I love that she got dressed up to go to prison.
Of course. The, quote, attractive, tastefully dressed young brunette calmly told of circumstances surrounding the killing. So she told them he was basically a lech, and he had consistently and aggressively come after her. She said he threatened those close to her and her own safety and would say, like, if you don't go out with me, I'm going to hurt someone close to you.
Yeah.
And
That's
wouldn't
really
take no
up.
for an answer. And in the paper, she said, quote, her companion then started making overtures to her when they were out in the car.
Ew.
And, quote, pawing her.
Ugh.
So she really...
You're not a dog, sir.
She attempted to get him out of the car by asking him to see if he could repair the motor trouble because he parked there and then was like, oops, the motor died.
Oh, what a sleaze. Yeah. Fuck you, guy.
But he remained in the automobile. When he declared he could not start the motor and did not try, the young woman said she reached into a car pocket where she knew he kept a pistol, drew the weapon, and fired one shot. The shot struck him in the chest, Bohats remaining upright on the seat but making no sound. Then the young woman opened the car door, and standing with one foot on the running board, she fired 2 more shots. And she said, quote, I thought he might not die.
Okay.
So basically, put her hands up and was like,
sorry.
I did it. I plead guilty.
Okay.
I did it.
All right.
And she was sentenced to 10 years at the same prison for second-degree murder.
Little Spoon is a one-stop shop for healthy, easy mealtime and snack time for your baby, your toddler, or even your big kid, and it's delivered right to your door. Little Spoon makes healthy mealtime easy at every stage, saving hours in your week and all at a reasonable price. They're also the most flexible company because you can pause, modify, or cancel or skip at any time. Most of the baby and kid food at the grocery store is heavily processed and often on the shelf way longer than your little one has probably even been in this world. Not cool and not the quality quality nutrition that your kids deserve. Little Spoon makes everything fresh and uses absolutely nothing artificial. It's just like homemade, all delivered to your door and ready in seconds. Pop your meals in the fridge or the freezer and use them when you're ready. It is that easy. All of their recipes taste absolutely delicious, and I can tell you that because I've tried some of them. They're all nutritionally balanced and free of junk, helping to set your little one up for a lifetime of health. Seriously, when I said that I tried some of them, I have. Elena was making the baby food the other day, and I was like, I'm sorry, are those chicken dumplings that you're serving her? Like, can I try a bite? Like, we have to test this before we give it to her, obviously. They were delicious. They also have smoothies that I just want to make for myself every day. The baby food goes from stage 1 smooth to single ingredients through to complex textured blends as your little one ages. And the toddler kids food plates have cuisines like mac and cheese, but also there's hidden butternut squash and carrots in there, so it's healthy. They have stuff that you would never make at home, but your kid's gonna love, and they're totally packed with nutrients. Finally, the smoothies, like I were just saying, they make snack time so much easier. Each flavor is inspired by a classic treat, so the kids are obsessed, and we get to feel good about giving them organic quality ingredients. I tried the strawberry and banana shake, and it tastes like an actual milkshake. I want to take them all home with me, to be honest with you. I don't know how they do it. And the best part, the price is just right. With kids' meals under $5 and baby food and smoothie snacks under $3. It makes trying Little Spoon easy. Start the new year fresh with Little Spoon. Get 50% off your first order with code MORBID at checkout. Enter code MORBID at checkout to get 50% off your first Little Spoon order.
Now, this time, she wasn't lucky enough to be kept inside.
Oh.
Nope. She was on hard labor.
Oh.
She was working in the fields in the stifling heat. And it's called, like, working the line, basically. Mm-hmm. She seemed to adjust and made some friends.
Well,
like
she's a hard worker anyway. She grew up on the river.
Exactly. She knows hard work. But this sucks. But she made a ton of friends. They were all like pretty, this is a women's prison. Mm-hmm. I guess they were very close in there. They'd like looked out for each other for the most part. And one night, an inmate and close friend of hers named Catherine told the group that she had heard the guards planning a seriously fucked up scheme. And she said, because Catherine, I guess, was like in there for a while. She was older. She had some more privileges than they did. Mm-hmm. So she was in various areas and heard more than they probably would.
Yeah.
She said they were basically planning to force some of the younger inmates into sex slavery.
What?
They were going to bus them nightly to Memphis and basically traffic them.
What the
for
fuck?
Money. Now, obviously, that was terrifying. And Helen immediately was like, well, fuck, that is not going to be me. No.
Nope.
And so the next day, September 13th, 1933, she was in the fields digging up sweet potatoes.
Yum.
And she said she just noticed how shitty the fencing was around the perimeter.
Yeah, she did.
So she just walked away.
Bye.
She just shot her shot and walked the fuck away through a shitty fence. Like, just bye.
I love that she was like one of the first people to think of that. Like, hey, that fence is really shitty.
Yeah.
I could leave.
Well, there was like an armed guard near her, and she was just like,
gotta go.
See ya. Unfortunately for her, she was caught and returned back to the prison in only 3 hours. But like, bold move, though.
Yeah. But now I'm really nervous for her.
But then it was announced that she would receive a punishment.
Uh-huh.
And that punishment was going to be 10 lashes.
Oh.
Yeah. 10 lashes with something they called a black snake. A whip that was horrifically huge and dangerous, and this was used commonly in prisons, and they would strip the prisoner naked, make them spread eagle over a barrel, and whip them.
Oh my God.
This is where the phrase have me over a barrel came from, which I had no idea. They referred to what they did to Helen as, quote, correcting her. And they kept records of every punishment. So they kept a record saying, like, this is what we did. Her record says, and it's signed by the warden.
Yeah.
It says, I have today corrected Helen Spence. Register number 127. Crime, murder in the second degree. Term, 10. County, Arkansas. For what offense corrected? For escaping. Mm-hmm. How corrected? 10 lashes.
Oof.
Now remember, and also she was 5'1".
Oh.
And she weighed like 130 pounds. She was like tiny.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess when they all the inmates heard that this was going to happen, they were like terrified for her because they were like, can she even handle 10 lashes?
Like, I was going to say,
Jesus.
she could die.
Now, remember, this was on September 13th. She rested for a couple days, and then on September 18th, right back in the fields to work again.
Wow.
she escaped again.
Yeah, she did.
Through another hole in the fence, she ran with fresh lash marks, still healing.
Wow.
She was recaptured the next day.
Come on, Helen, run faster.
Now, this is where things get really dark.
Mm-hmm.
She was corrected again, but there is no record of how she was corrected.
I'm sure there's not.
They took her into the warden's basement, and then when she came out, she had a high fever and suffered a kidney infection and could barely walk and couldn't speak. She was almost septic in a matter of days, and they believed she would die.
What do you think happened to make her become septic?
Well, they tried to treat her in the prison medical facility and sent word to her friends and family, basically saying, like, she's probably going to die. Sorry. Records indicate that she was treated with high levels of sodium benzoate, which is used to treat high levels of ammonia in your system because it aids in the breaking the ammonia down. Now, high ammonia levels can happen often from liver failure, kidney failure, basically systemic breakdown, organ failure. So Helen being treated with this meant her organs were literally failing. Now, aside from that, she was also being treated with digitalis, which is a heart medication that's given to patients with congestive heart failure or with rhythmic heart issues. She had no history of that.
Right.
It increases the blood flow and reduces swelling in extremities. So it reduces fluid retention, so edema. Now, if it was used to treat the fluid retention, that could have been because of heart issues or because of something like tuberculosis, epilepsy, migraines, spasms. So I'm like, what did they do to her that made these things possibly happen? Weird little side note about digitalis, too. Digitalis is made from the plant foxglove, and it's highly poisonous. But foxglove is also one of the major ingredients in Digoxin, which is the medicine that Dorothea Puente used to try to kill some of her patients.
Wow, weird little connection.
Isn't that a weird little connection?
That is.
Now, records also say on September 30th, between 4 to 6 p.m., Helen was given at least 5 enemas between those a couple of hours. Now, this makes me wonder if the digitalis was partially to try to induce vomiting, because it can be used for that. Were they trying to get something out of her system?
What do you think was in her system, though?
I don't know what they could have done to her down there, but they did something down there.
What the fuck?
And something else further makes me think that happens later. So she went through even more enemas. Like, one would definitely say way too many enemas. Yeah. In the end, she was completely filled to the brim with morphine. On October 2nd, she went into a coma. They kept at it, though. After this, they just added sweet milk to her enemas.
Why?
Don't know. October 3rd was a full day of almost constant enemas and morphine. That night, she was finally transported to an actual hospital because her fever was at 103, and she was literally dying. Almost immediately, she was treated with something called aluminol, and this is used to induce vomiting as well. They use this at the hospital.
So they must have, like, poisoned her.
So I'm like, they're trying to get something out of her.
Right.
Clearly.
Right.
Now, on October 7th, she was just transported back to the prison in good condition, according to records. So when she got to the hospital, she was immediately
cured.
Fine.
Yeah.
But they just kept doing all that shit they were doing to her at the prison. That was like torture.
I was just going to say that was pure torture.
So she's sent back to the prison, and at this point, she wasn't allowed in the fields anymore because duh. So now they made her work in the prison laundry.
Okay.
Which she was like, that's fine. Now, within weeks, that scheme that Catherine was saying about they were going to bring him to Memphis, that was happening.
Oh, no.
So she kept Catherine was warning everybody, and some people weren't really listening. Some people were.
Why would you not listen to
Helen
that?
took it seriously.
Yeah.
And then she found herself on that bus to Memphis.
No, I knew you were going to say that, but
Only
I'm still
a few
shocked.
nights later.
No.
So when the bus arrived at a rest stop in West Memphis, she asked to use the ladies' room.
Hell yeah, she did.
And they let her. And what they didn't know was that all these weeks she had been in the laundry working, she had been systematically and slowly stealing gingham cloth napkins from the laundry, one by one. And at night, she was sewing them to the inside lining of her prison dress. So when she went to the ladies' room, she
said,
turned
reverse,
her dress
reverse.
inside out and it looked like she was wearing a red and white gingham dress. Then she just walked the fuck away.
Yes, bitch.
They caught her again.
No!
They caught her again. But she had fucked up this whole Memphis scheme.
Yeah.
They didn't get to go to Memphis.
But what the fuck are they going to do to her for that?
She was corrected with another 10 lashes.
No.
Now, this is when the wardens were like, get her the fuck away from us. And they had her transferred to a state hospital.
Okay.
That was on December 5th, 1933. And they basically did this by stating that she was suffering from homicidal mania.
No, she's suffering
Which was really
from
just,
your prison is
she's
disgusting.
suffering
Get me
from,
out of
she's
here.
smarter than us and we can't deal with it.
Yeah.
That's what she's suffering from. She was transferred to the hospital and examined there, said to be completely sane.
Yeah, of course she is.
But suffering from what they called constitutional psychopathic inferiority, which is now actually antisocial personality disorder.
Oh, okay. Gee, I wonder why.
She was returned to the prison again because they were like, yeah, we're overrun here, and she's not insane. So she went back, and this time the wardens were not taking any chances. So they literally, are you ready?
No.
Built a wooden cage to keep her in.
What?
This wooden cage was so small she couldn't move.
What?
They built a wooden cage around her and put her in it.
What the fuck is wrong with people?
They also placed this cage in its own barracks away from everybody at the end of a room under a window so that all day she would be unable to get out of the full, unfiltered sun.
Oh, God.
That would make the cage temperatures reach well above 100 degrees.
Oh, my God.
She was being literally burned to death, essentially.
Where are the people that are supposed to make sure the prison conditions are okay?
Yeah, not sure.
Yeah.
There was a lot of reform after this, but
yeah, I'm sure.
Also, she began to be sent outside to work again and then locked up in the cage for the rest of the day.
Wow.
So no one was allowed to speak to her. She had to eat alone. And out in the fields, no one could look or speak to her.
What the fuck?
Now, on July 10th, she's out in the fields working. Middle of the summer, obviously July 10th in Arkansas.
Did she
say
bye again?
She fainted in the fields and asked, when she came to, she asked to go get her medication because she was still on medication from that whole ordeal.
Yeah.
They allowed her to do it. She did. She came back out to the field and just kept walking. Didn't stop.
Okay.
She walked right by the assistant warden and a guard, an armed guard named Frank Martin, who was actually called a trustee guard. And he was actually an inmate who was serving 21 years in prison for murder. But his little job in the prison was to carry a gun and watch over the women.
Are you guys okay? Are you guys
What's happening over
what
there?
The fuck?
Like, how did that seem like a smart job? She walked right by them. She climbed a barbed wire fence. And they said she did it like it was nothing.
Yes, she did.
And then just ran into the woods.
At this point, it's like, guys,
just let her go,
because she's going to keep doing this. So.
Well, somehow she got out of the woods and ended up walking down a dirt road. She slept under an oak tree that night. No one found her.
Good.
But then somehow...
No, stop. I don't want you to keep telling me that she got caught.
Well, there's various reports how she was spotted by someone. And someone reported her.
Well, fuck that person.
Now, so she gets up the next morning. She starts walking again down this dirt road. The authorities are on their way now because she's been spotted.
Damn it.
They showed up and ordered her to stop, but she didn't. She just kept walking.
She's like, fuck off.
That's when Frank Martin shot her in the back of the head, killing her instantly. When they searched her, they found lipstick in her that one of the other inmates had given her, and a gun belonging to Frank Martin, the guard, because she had snuck into his room beforehand and stole it while he slept because, oh my God, who is she?
Whoa.
She had it hidden in her clothing. It was his gun.
What?
The warden, Mrs. Brockman, was informed of this, and she said, that is a great burden off my shoulders.
Yeah, that's a coont move.
She was set up to die. Inmates at the field that day said even though the assistant warden and Frank Martin watched her walk away the day she escaped, they didn't make much of an attempt to stop her. And it was like they were letting her go. And there was nothing she had on her that would have allowed her to break into Frank's room. That door was unlocked, they found. It was left unlocked.
Uh-huh.
Also, There was a note left in her little cage, and it said, "To whom it may concern, I'll never be taken alive." And they think it was forged. Nay, they don't think it. They know it now.
Of course.
And part of the setup, her signatures did not match. In fact, her sister Edie later brought hundreds of letters she had sent her when they were apart from each other. And they compared the handwriting and the signatures, and she brought them specifically to be like, fuck you guys, that's not her handwriting.
Right.
None of it matched up. And the coroner actually changed her cause of death from justifiable homicide to undetermined, and the coroner asked for a grand jury investigation into her murder.
Good.
Now, it was determined it was indeed a setup, this entire thing.
Just like it.
Everyone got fucked. The grand jury charged the assistant superintendent, who was the warden's husband, by the way, with basically every single accessory to murder charge you could.
Good.
They charged Frank Martin with another murder, and the warden, Mrs. Brockman, resigned and was subject to her own grand jury investigation, now into her prison and how her prison was being run.
Hell yeah.
And the superintendent, A.G. Stedman, who actually wrote that she needed to be kept in that cage, and he actually wrote a thing saying, do not let her out of that cage, don't let her speak to anyone, do not let her escape again. He was a piece of shit.
Yeah.
He resigned as well. And
he should go to prison for that alone.
Exactly. And they found out that Frank had done it. He said he shot her because they said, if you shoot her, we'll get you out of your sentence.
Wow.
Yep. Now, Helen again became a very sympathetic character to everyone who was reading this. And
they kept her in a fucking cage.
Oh, the mistreatment was outrageous.
Not even a word for it.
Donations for flowers, funeral arrangements, everything came in from everywhere. People were donating everything for her and her family. People even donated funeral plots for her.
Wow.
Newspapers were running full pages about her story, and an anonymous person took out a full page to write a huge thing about her. And this is just a little excerpt from the Daughter of the White River book. It says, Helen was loyal and true to all who were straight with her. The girls on the farm were all fond of her. She never gossiped or said mean things about them. So this is somebody she was in prison with. Mm-hmm. In the room at night, when the girls would gather around to gossip, Helen would be in her bed, fixing her face and singing old-time songs. I have gotten in bed with her many a night to listen to her singing songs that my mother used to sing. All the time I knew her, I never heard her curse.
Wow. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp Online Therapy. We talk about BetterHelp a lot on this show, and this month we're discussing some of the stigmas around mental health. Many people think that therapy is for so-called crazy people, but therapy doesn't mean that anything is wrong with you. It means that you recognize that all humans have emotions and we need to learn how to control them, not avoid them. And we've been taught that mental health shouldn't be part of normal life, but that's wrong too. We take care of our bodies by going to the gym, the doctor, and by eating balanced nutrition. We should be focusing on our minds just the same. I go to therapy personally, and I think it has been so beneficial for my mental health and just my growth, because the difference between before I was going to therapy and now, I'll be in a situation that I'm not necessarily happy to be in, but I have the right tools to kind of communicate how I'm feeling, or to, not necessarily communicate how I'm feeling, because you don't always have to. You can just enjoy a situation for what it is. BetterHelp is customized their online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can be matched with a therapist in under 48 hours. Give it a try and see why over 2 million people have used BetterHelp Online Therapy. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp, and Morbid listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/morbid. That's BETTERHELP.com/morbid.
So more and more came out about the reality of her situation in prison after her death. One of the doctors that had seen her actually testified to the grand jury that he told prison officials, you cannot put her in that cage.
No.
They literally were like,
duh,
you can't put her back in there. This is not something
destroy
you can do.
A cage.
And they were like,
what?
she's literally burning to death in there. You're
God.
killing her slowly.
Yeah, it's like being in a hot car.
Yeah. They were like, she's literally burning from the inside
her
out.
organs are cooking.
And yeah, and they said it was literally medieval torture.
Yep.
It was also mentioned, he said in that grand jury testimony that she had had a heart attack.
I'm sure
and
she
no
did.
one knew about it.
I'm sure she
So they
yeah,
said
that makes
whatever
sense.
they did to her, she had a heart attack from it.
Wow.
And when they put her in that cage, she was like, you can't put her in. They said, in fact, the doctor said that he told them, if you're going to put her in the fields, that's fine, but you can't have her overworked. She's going to have another heart attack. And they were also like, he said, if you want to put a ball and chain on her to keep her from running,
like, go ahead.
That's fine. But they were like, you can't, like, she can't try to escape again. You can't try to, like, run after her or anything. She will have another heart attack.
Right.
Which nobody knew she even had one.
Wow.
They just kept that all under wraps. Now, unfortunately, by a technicality, Frank Martin was acquitted.
Well, that's fucked.
Of murder. The technicality was a section 9691, and it basically said that a guard can murder a convict to stop them from escaping.
He's not a guard, he's a murderer.
Exactly.
A convicted murderer.
And that whole program of having inmates be guards for the women prison was taken care of after
Like, you really think that was going to end up
that was unbelievably.
We have murderous humans guarding other humans? Oh, okay.
And this, like, murderous man watching over a bunch of women? Like, are you kidding me?
Like, that's safe.
No. So her body was actually, so the funeral home, it was all paid for by, like, donations.
Yeah.
But they put her body on display at the funeral home for everyone to come by and see.
It's real weird.
The river people, their community, were not pleased with this,
of course
obviously.
Not. That's weird.
She ended up buried in an unmarked grave in St. Charles next to the grave of her father, Cicero Spence.
Why did they not mark her grave?
Well, here's the thing. So one of her best friends in life, the man named John Black, who I mentioned earlier, they grew up together.
Yeah.
He planted a cedar tree at her grave that he removed as, like, a little baby tree from the banks of the White River to mark her grave.
My whole body just said...
And it's still there today.
Whoa.
Now, you asked, why was she buried in an unmarked grave?
I did.
How did she get to this burial place? Well, in the middle of the night, John Black and others from the river broke into the funeral home and carried her body there.
Hell yeah, brother.
To bury her where they knew she wouldn't have wanted to be buried.
Next to her dad.
To her father. They didn't want her to be in the window of the funeral home.
No,
they
that's
said
so weird.
She had already spent a day and a night being on display, and they said they were sick of everyone looking at her. They wanted her to have dignity and not be the show she was forced to be in life anymore.
Yeah.
They were like, this is it.
Like, this guy murdered her father, and this was the rest of her life.
Yeah. Now...
That's so sad. That is tragic.
Yeah. And actually, so I told you that the author of that book, Daughter of the White River, talked to Elsie Brown, the sheriff's son who she grew up with. There was an article called Avenging Angel, and it was in the Northwest Arkansas Democrat Gazette. And this article was written by Sean Clancy. And it said, in the late 70s, L.C. Brown was working as a policeman in Hot Springs, so he became a policeman too.
Wow.
Following in the lawman footsteps of his Arkansas County deputy sheriff father. It was around this time that John Black got in touch with Brown again. And they had been friends as, like, boys.
Yeah.
Asking him to come over to DeWitt for a visit. The river folk aren't a real talkative lot, and it took more than 2 visits before Black finally got around to telling Brown what he wanted. Black had quietly tended the St. Charles Cemetery for years, and he knew where Helen's unmarked grave was in the cemetery because he'd planted that old cedar tree there.
He loved her.
He said, I helped bury her. Brown, 87, says of the conversation he had with Black, he said, promise me that you'll tell this story, the true story about Helen. After I die, I want the story told. Brown was reluctant, but Black assured him, you'll figure it out.
I'm ruined.
Now, John Black died in 1979, and he made L.C. Brown promise to wait until his death to reveal the location of where he'd buried Helen. And L.C. did wait until 1979. A lot of people thought John and Helen were in love. They were like, lovers?
Maybe they were just best friends.
But Elsie said in the book, quote, John and Helen were not lovers. They're just buddies, is all. Ain't you ever had a buddy?
Yes.
Which I was like, fuck yeah.
Yeah, because, like, not everything
so
has to be a love story.
No, they were just best fucking
like,
friends.
He loved her.
He just loved her.
Right.
And she loved him.
Yeah, like, they were, it sounds like they were, like, almost like brother and sister.
They were like soulmates in that way. So L.C. Brown told Helen's story everywhere and helped create that book, Daughter of the White River. And he was helping to create, like, documentaries about it. He kept her memory and legacy alive and told of how, you know, she was in life. He passed away January 26, 2015 in his recliner in Arkansas. His obituary says L.C. Brown, 88, of Hot Springs, peacefully passed in his sleep in his recliner in his home on January 26, 2015.
What a way to go.
He was born April 17th, 1926 in Arkansas County near his beloved White River. He was preceded in death by his parents, Lemuel and Estella Brown, by the love of his life, his wife, Anna Frank Brown, his brother, John Homer, and sister-in-law, Charles C. Brown. He hunted and trapped in the woods he cherished. He served in the Army during World War II and a Purple Heart Medal recipient. Wow. He was a wonderful father, mechanic extraordinaire, Hot Springs police detective, long-distance truck driver, and small business owner. He was a contributor to a documentary film on the people of the White River and book of Daughter of the White River. Now, the author, Denise White Parkinson, of that book is still fighting Elsie's fight to get a posthumous pardon for Helen Spence from the governor of Arkansas.
They should, obviously.
Yeah, it hasn't happened yet that I could see. I dug. I couldn't find anything that says it happened, but I want to see it happen.
I absolutly want to see it happen.
She was done real dirty.
She was put in a fucking cage. If that alone should be enough to get her a pardon.
Her grandmother, when they went back to talk to her after her death, her grandmother said she didn't believe that Helen had killed Jim Bohatz.
Really?
She said she thought there was some misguided way, like you said, that she believed she didn't want to be where she was. She couldn't go home. So she was like, just put me back in prison because this is basically prison.
I just don't understand why they wouldn't let her go back to the river. Like, she didn't do anything wrong on the river.
That's the thing.
Like, why couldn't she go back there?
Yeah, I don't know. I just was part of the whole parole, I guess. But it's interesting. It's an interesting story. And obviously, vigilante justice isn't like, woo, kill someone in a courtroom.
No,
but
of course not.
It's a very intense story. There's so many layers to it.
Wow. Where did you end up finding this?
I was looking for, I forget what other case I was like peeking at. I was looking at like another case in Arkansas, I believe, and it just happened to pop up as like a book.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, "Ooh, Daughter of the White River," and I just kind of like popped it open, and I was like, "Oh, that looks interesting. I'll give it a look." I started reading it, could not stop, and was like, "Yep, this is my case. I cannot stop."
That was such an interesting case. It was like different than anything you've really ever done.
It felt like I was like, I have to tell this story.
Oh, that was like gut wrenching,
and there was just so many like moments that you're just like, what the fuck? Like, you don't see the shots in the courtroom happening. You don't see, that whatever punishment they gave her. I still want to know to this day what the fuck they did to her.
I know.
And then
I can't even imagine. They probably just did like multiple horrific
Oh, I'm sure they did horrible things, because Denise White Parkinson, who wrote the book, she said, there's a lot written about prisons at that time because it was so horrific at that time. But they said not a lot is written about women's prisons.
It's true.
In particular.
I was thinking that, actually.
Yeah, and we didn't know that the same shit was happening in those prisons. You have no
probably
idea.
Even worse sometimes.
So she wanted to make sure that was known too. But I can't tell you how much. I don't think there's any other books written on this case, but read that book about this case.
Absolutely.
There's tons of articles too. I'll see if I can link a few of the articles too, because they're very fascinating. The ones with Elsie Brown are really, really fascinating.
Yeah, I just love that, like, the sense of community.
Well, just that, like, and like that John Black,
just like
kept her, like, was like, he kept tending that spot where they put her, and just thinking about, like, it reminded me of the Fear Street 1666.
I was just fucking thinking
when they get her body and they bury her themselves under the tree, because that's what you do when, like, you want someone to have dignity and they're wronged in death.
Well, and I'm so happy that, like, he was able to do that for her, and she was laid to rest next to her family. That's because it was like she had nobody,
and she was with her dad,
who she loved, obviously,
who everything was so for much, like, this whole thing was for him.
I hope eventually they marked her grave.
They did. There's a mark there now. Good. And there's a mark for Cicero's grave, too.
And there's the tree there, too.
And the tree is there.
Is it in a cemetery, do you know?
I think it is, yeah, but it's, like, off to the side. So he had put it in, like, a place where it wouldn't be
I would really love to go there someday.
I would love to see it.
Yeah.
Because I want to see that tree, too.
Bring her some flowers.
And I just love that he uprooted, like, I think it was, like, a year-old little cedar tree from the banks of the White River.
That's amazing.
Where she spent her whole life.
Like, what a beautiful tribute to her.
Right? I just feel it. I'm like,
because I know she, like, maybe people might get mad because, like, she killed people, but
I know it's a tough one.
It's a very different kind of case.
It's a weird case. It for sure is.
I personally was rooting for Helen the whole time.
Well, and it's a sad, what happened to her later was just outrageous.
Yeah.
I mean, it was completely outrageous. And again, her grandmother doesn't think she killed Jim Bohatz, so.
What do you think?
And there was no actual evidence that she did. There was no physical evidence that pointed to it. I think she definitely could have done it for sure.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you should, murder anyone, but
Of course not.
if she was, doing anything in self-defense.
I was just going to say, realistically, it sounded like it very well could have
But
been.
it was so long ago and there's so little to go
And no
on that you
witnesses.
can't really say here or there. And obviously you can't shoot people in the middle of a courtroom.
No.
But, the whole story is just a really fascinating look.
Sounds like
that.
a movie.
It felt like, that's why I kept saying characters, because
Yeah.
it really felt like a movie.
Yeah, like an
I
old-timey
was like, how is this
movie
real?
or book.
Like, how?
Wow, that was a really great case.
Thanks. I thought it was
Thank you.
a crazy one. And, the whole thing is just really tragic.
Yeah,
But-
no, that was really sad. I hate that was the ending. Like
I
when you said
know.
he shot her, I was like, no!
No!
I feel like I was like on the last page, like crying.
And that they set her up and everything. It was
Yeah, that's fucked.
It was so gnarly.
They put a note in her cage as if she
Yeah.
would have had fucking any room to write in there.
for her in her cage.
Yeah.
I love that.
Disgusting.
Yeah. So
Wow.
that is the story of Helen Spence, the Swamp Angel.
And we hope that you keep listening.
And we hope you
keep
it
weird. But not so weird that you do this to anybody ever.
Yeah, not so weird that you do vigilante justice, because that's not good.
No, and it doesn't end up well, clearly.
And not
so.
weird that you murder anyone anyways.
And not so weird that you ever put anybody in a cage.
No. Don't
don't
put
even wanna
baby in
put-
a corner either.
Yeah, like I don't even want to put like a dog in a crate. Never
No.
mind like a fucking human in a cage.
No, none of this is
What the
okay.
fuck?